Hello and welcome. The big news coming in. The Prime Minister is in Ladakh. He arrived in Leh early this morning to review the situation after the June 15th clash in Ladakh, where 20 soldiers were killed in line of duty in a face-off with Chinese troops. This visit is being seen as a big signal to China. The Prime Minister is presently at one of the forward locations in Nimu, is what we have learned, that he reached there this morning, and he's interacting with personnel of the Army, Air Force and the ITBP. He's later expected to visit the injured soldiers in the hospital in Leh, the Galwan Braves. Well, let's go across to NDTV's Vishnu and Neeta joining us for more on this. First to you, Vishnu, a big morale booster for the forces there in Ladakh after that clash that took place with China. It's also a message to the opposition.
Well, I think there's a lot that's taken place after the clashes in which 20 Indian soldiers were killed in action, and in which the Indian Army believes that upwards of 40 Chinese casualties took place. That took place in the Galwan Valley. Since there have been several rounds of talks between military leaders of India and China, with India making it absolutely clear that as far as we are concerned, there needs to be a restoration of the situation prior to when the tension started developing in early April. Whether or not that actually takes place or not, we don't know, but there is a hope that that process of disengagement actually starts. Beijing has also referred to the importance of deconflicting that particular area. But unless there are tangible signs of the Chinese actually doing that, I think it's fair to say that our soldiers who are hunkered down in all across the Ladakh frontier might just have a long summer ahead of them. The Prime Minister's visit over here is to share a sense of camaraderie and to instill confidence among our soldiers. Nimu, where he is right now, is not really a frontline post. It's just a short distance away from Leh. And it's unclear whether he would actually go to frontline positions further afield, whether it's near the Pangong Lake or the Gogra area or near Galwan or further up north. That really depends on the security situation and whether he is allowed to travel to those areas. We do know that he would be going to the military hospital in Leh, where several of the soldiers who were injured in the clashes in the Galwan Valley on the 15th of June are still getting better. 76 soldiers were injured. They were being treated in many hospitals in the area, also other hospitals or facilities of the Northern Command. A few of them might still be unwell and getting better. So the Prime Minister meeting them would be important. As the pictures show, there's been a large assembly of soldiers and Air Force officers and men in Nimu, where the Prime Minister was. And meeting the Prime Minister, seeing the Prime Minister, I think is a big morale booster for our forces, because what we don't really talk about very much, because we've been told not to, and is that the numbers of soldiers deployed now in Ladakh is very, very extensive. We don't want to get into exact numbers.
Right.
So the size of the forces is very big, and they're there for a long time, and they possibly will remain for a long time. So the Prime Minister's visit is meant to bolster their confidence.
Right. Vishnu, we're also joined by Lieutenant General Satish Dua. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. So a big message here to China with the Prime Minister's surprise visit there to Ladakh, and also a morale booster, as Vishnu was saying, to the forces there.
Yes, Ankita. It's always very uplifting for the morale of the front line, whether it is soldiers or anyone, when the leaders move to the front line. In a situation that we've been seeing that has been developing over the last 2 months or more, it is not only a morale booster for the armed forces, which obviously it is. I think it's also a big morale booster for the country and a very strong statement being made. Also, the fact that he interacts with troops on ground, with soldiers in the hospital, he gets a first-hand account without any time lags. He gets an account directly from the front line of small and big issues that have been concerning them. So it's very important that he gets that kind of a first-hand account without layers of analysis and time lags in between. I think all in all, a very good step, will go very well for the armed forces, and a strong step, a strong statement being made there by the Prime Minister.
General Dua, it's Gargi here, but also this visit by the Prime Minister, as Vishnu was telling us, talks have been going on. There have been several rounds of talks, but we have been told by the defense, by the government, that it's in for the long haul, that this is not something that's going to be resolved immediately. All these talks that have been taking place, but still along the LOC, it remains very, very heated on both sides. And we've seen a big build-up, as Vishnu was saying, in China. We don't want to say too much about the situation on the Indian side, but a lot of troops over there, and the Prime Minister now making this visit. It comes and a surprise visit at that, because remember, we were expecting Defence Minister to visit, and then we were told that visit was rescheduled. So again, a big message, given that it is the long haul for the forces there.
My apologies, Gagi, I got your name wrong. But it is a long haul for a different reason. It is a long haul because we have already had 3 rounds of those Lieutenant General level talks in which some protocols of disengagement have been decided. It's a long haul because it's a verifiable process. Each step that is taken by one side will be verified by photographs, maybe by drones. Thereafter, it will be verified by a patrol physically going and checking out that a certain structure or a certain movement has taken place backwards. Then, which takes about 72 hours. Then they come back and they will dismantle their part of whatever protocol has been agreed to. So it's a step-by-step verifiable process. Therefore, it takes a long time. In fact, it was one such verification patrol that turned ugly on the 15th. So hereafter, assuming that we don't have any such issues in between, yet it is going to take months because, like I said, it is going to be a step-by-step process. So we will have patience at that and hope that nothing turns ugly. As far as the build-up is concerned, well, armies always hope for the best but plan for the worst. So armies will have to be ready. I'm glad that our deployments and positions are not being brought out in the media. It's a very mature thing to do. So while we are disengaging, we have to keep ourselves ready for all options. But last sentence, yes, it will be a long process. We will have to be very patient on this, and I would urge everyone to keep their patience and not try to say, oh, we must kick them out and we must do this. Well, we must keep our options ready, but we must also give a chance to be able to disengage as per the talks that are taking place and that continue to take place.
Right. And General Dua, finally, this opposition has been very critical of the Prime Minister for not speaking out against China strongly enough. But with this visit, a very, very strong signal to China.
I agree. The Prime Minister had once spoken about this, where he gave out certain clarifications on this issue. There was a lot of talk when he spoke about the Unlock 2.0 a couple of days ago when it was expected that why did he not address China? So I will not comment on this. But I think this silences everyone. He has himself visited. He has met the frontline soldiers. He is going to meet the patients in the hospital. I think this should actually silence everybody, and a very strong statement goes out to the other side. And the last sentence I would like to say, I think this is time that the whole country comes together. I mean, we'll not talk about political lines or any other detractors. Everyone needs to come together. Some other very good steps have been taken. These 59 apps that have been banned, several other steps that have been announced in the road construction or in the telecommunications. I think this is the kind of integrated approach that is required. And I think this Prime Minister's visit is now sending out a strong statement that we are prepared to do whatever it takes, but we will not have the sovereignty or territorial integrity of our borders being compromised. Thank you.
All right, General Dua, thank you so much for speaking to NDTV. Let's go across to Neeta for more on this. And Neeta, so a surprise visit by the Prime Minister, a strong signal to China and a morale booster for the forces there.
Yes, Gargi, a big morale booster. It's a first political visit by a politician, and that too by the Prime Minister himself. So obviously at multiple levels it's sending a message to the domestic sector also, to the domestic constituents also, and international also, to China also. So at multiple levels the Pradhan Mantri has managed to send a message by his visit. He is in Nimu, where he's being briefed by the Air Force officials, Army officials, and also ITBP officials. He would be meeting injured Jawans also. You know, we can also say it's a kind of amends that the Indian government is doing, because till now the government stance was that nobody has come from the Chinese side, nobody has aggressed to Indian side. Even when the Pradhan Mantri had spoken about China, that time also he had referred that no one was inside our territory. So that was seen as a little bit of a, that had upset many our forces also. In fact, that is why the opposition began clamoring upon him, leveling all sorts of allegations. But now with Pradhan Mantri himself being there, he's sending out a big political message, to all the people concerned, and also to the Jawans who are, engaged in this almost 50-day long standoff. Earlier, when there were these types of news which used to reach Delhi used to always, negate it, rebuff it, saying no, nothing of that sort is happening. Till the time on 15th of June, 20 of our brave hearts, died because of one such standoff. After that, still the government maintained that no, China had not engaged our side, they were not on our side. Till yesterday also, when you heard the Ministry of External Affairs briefing, they were again saying that at many levels the military talks have already taken place, but China is still not ready to push back. But now with Pradhan Mantri himself being there, it's a big message politically to China also, and diplomatically to the other international community also. Gargi?
Right, Neeta, and also it was interesting that initially we were told it was the defense minister who would be going there to Ladakh, and I imagine that preparations were being made accordingly, and then we were told it's rescheduled, and finally it's the Prime Minister who's visited. It's a one-day visit, we're told, isn't it? And he'll be back by the evening. He'll be meeting, as we said, the injured soldiers in the hospital, the Galwan Brave. So interesting how initially, it was thought it would be the defense minister, and then it is the Prime Minister who's making this surprise visit.
Absolutely, Gargi. On Wednesday evening, there were confirmations also from the Ministry of Defence that the Raksha Mantri himself would be visiting Ladakh area. In fact, till late afternoon yesterday also, the reports stood. But suddenly, since yesterday afternoon, there were reports that again plans are being made. Plans are again being chalked out as far as Raksha Mantri's visit is concerned. And today morning, it became all clear that why Raksha Mantri did not make to the forward area, Ladakh area, and why the Chief of Army Staff was accompanied by the Pradhan Mantri. In fact, even the Army Chief is also there with Pradhan Mantri himself in Nimu. So at the top level, people are accompanying the Pradhan Mantri. It's a big political visit also. Political visit it can be seen as a political visit also. By the top commanders of army are accompanying him. So obviously it's at messaging at multiple points. Gargi?
All right, Neeta, thanks so much for joining us there with those details. So the Prime Minister at Nimu currently, where he's interacting with the defense forces over there. Later, he will be visiting the hospital as well. Let's go across to Vishnu again for more on this story. Vishnu, these are the visuals we're getting currently. Now, Nimu, according to what the office released in a statement, they described it as a forward post, but you're saying this is somewhere near Leh, and in a short while from now, the Prime Minister will be going to the hospital in Leh.
So Nimu is an area close to Leh. It's a popular tourist destination, but it's also a very heavily militarized area. In fact, that entire area of Ladakh is. So there are large facilities over there of the army, and places where a large collection or assembly of soldiers can actually take place. So the Prime Minister has been speaking to and meeting soldiers of the army, the Indian Air Force and the Indo-Tibetan Border Police. I can't stress enough the importance of the ITBP. Whenever we talk about the Ladakh situation lately, we keep talking about the army, and while that's absolutely critical, let's not forget that Ladakh and the frontiers over there are patrolled by the ITBP, which is an extremely competent force in in many respects. So he's meeting all of them, as you mentioned, but Nimu isn't very close to the front line, as it were. If there were to be a visit to the front line, if the Prime Minister, for example, were to go in the direction of Galwan, or if he was to go towards the hot springs area, then I don't think they'd announce it at all. There would be security concerns over there. And I think the point that you were discussing a little while earlier on about this confusion on, who would actually visit. Would it be the Prime Minister? Or would it be the Defense Minister? Would it be the Army Chief? Later on, last night sometime, we found out that it was the Chief of Defense Staff who would be going there. And then, voila, it's the Prime Minister who lands up there. So I would say that was done deliberately, that confusion fulfilling a certain security requirement, because there's been a standoff. It's a face-off. It's being called a face-off now officially. And therefore, there was an element of keeping the entire matter a bit confused. But the Prime Minister is there today, and he should, anytime now, we haven't gotten any updates, perhaps already be in the process of meeting some of the soldiers who were injured in Galwan. There were 76 in total who were injured. Many of them would be okay now, would have rejoined their units. But remember, it was the clash on the 15th of June in Galwan that really built up on that pressure quite easily, the worst situation between India and China in 53 years, right? So that's a long period of time. And so he'd be meeting a few of those soldiers, getting an opportunity to get a first-hand idea of what exactly they face. It's being described as a one-day visit. A lot of aircraft don't really take off from Ladakh once it's dark. They generally, I don't think that happens at all. And so the Prime Minister would likely take off before dusk and return to Delhi. So it's a short visit, but the Army Chief is there, the Chief of Defense Staff and the Prime Minister. Besides messaging, as far as our soldiers is concerned, I think this is a very clear signal to China. In fact, it's perhaps an even bigger signal to China than anything else, saying that I am the leader of this country. There's been multiple incursions on our territory, and I stand firm over here. And I think it indicates resolve at a time in which India is finally, albeit belatedly, taking some sort of measures against China, whether it's blocking the entry of Chinese firms in the MSME sector, the ban on 59 Chinese apps, Nitin Gadkari saying there'd be no Chinese involvement in future highway projects, with business leaders like the generals saying that they would cut down and ultimately make zero their imports from China. So there's one level of very important pressure being mounted. The Chinese incursions on the ground remain. The question is whether they would go back. But as I've been mentioning through the last hour or so, the Indian Army is very well hunkered down, along with the ITBP, in those parts of Ladakh. So I don't think there's any real prospect of a future Chinese incursion, and one would hope that there is no further attempt like that, because India would be very much in a position to retaliate.
Right. And Vishnu, as you said, a strong signal to China, given the Prime Minister himself is visiting Ladakh, where the clashes took place. Do you think now we'll have to, watch very closely what sort of reaction we see coming from China?
Well, I think it would be very interesting to see if the Chinese react at all. I mean, this is, whenever an Indian leader visits Arunachal Pradesh, where they have their territorial claims, they make they may issue statements and make a suggest that what is being done is wrong, but that isn't really the case as far as Ladakh is concerned. And even if it were, India wouldn't really care about what they have to say. But I think this is a straightforward message to China that, look, we are here and we stand committed and we stand resolved to deal with this particular situation.
And currently, as far as the talks go, Vishnu, there have been 3 rounds of talks and disengagement has been agreed on by both sides, and that's where it currently stands. But again, as you have been reporting over the past couple of days, this is something that is going to take a long time to reach this, this point where both sides are satisfied, or India is satisfied.
It has to be verifiable, Gargi, and that's the bottom line. It's all very well for the Chinese to say, as they have said, that mutual disengagement needs to take place. But then what does that translate onto the ground? It means that you move from a particular position in an area where you have intruded a certain distance away. Now, no one will tell us what that distance is, and one would only hope that that is substantial. As far as India is concerned, moving back might be a short-term military decision to build confidence, bilateral confidence in a particular area, to show our intentions are clean and clear. But let's not forget that, any Indian withdrawal, as it were, would be moving back in our own territory. And, we aren't the aggressors over here. We aren't the people who've intruded in any else's territory. But it's all calibrated and it has to be verified. And if the Chinese decide not to breach faith as they've done in the past, because the last round of talks was on the 22nd. They were supposed to withdraw from certain areas. They didn't do that. There have been another round of talks now. Have they moved back? Have we done the same? And has it been mutually accepted? And is this, therefore, a beginning of the end of this crisis? I think it's very early now to suggest that we're anywhere close to that stage.
All right, Vishnu, thanks so much for joining us there. So that is the big story we're tracking. The Prime Minister there, you can see him in those pictures that have been released. He's in Nimu, which is close to Leh, in the surprise visit to Ladakh, where he's interacting with the defense forces there. He will also be visiting the hospital where soldiers are being treated, the soldiers who were involved in that 15th June clash in which India lost 20 of its soldiers who were killed in action. So the strong message being sent by the Prime Minister, a signal to China on one hand, and also a signal to the detractors and the opposition who have been constantly critical of the Prime Minister over his handling of the tensions and the face-off with China as far as the ground situation goes. As Vishnu was telling us, there have been 3 rounds of talks. Disengagement has been agreed on, but it is going to take a long time. As he said, it has to be verifiable that indeed the Chinese have moved back, and so far there's no such evidence to that front. So this is going to take a while, but the Prime Minister sending a long message and a strong message, and also a morale booster to our forces there in Ladakh. Well, with that, time for us to slip into a short break. We'll return with more. Service provider ANI, there you can see the chopper landing and the Prime Minister. Earlier we only had pictures, stills of the Prime Minister's arrival there in Ladakh, but there you can see how he arrived in that chopper. The Prime Minister in a surprise visit to Ladakh early this morning. He arrived there and he is currently in a post Nimu where he is interacting with soldiers. He's accompanied by the Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, and the Army Chief, General Naravane. And there you can see the Prime Minister interacting. It's a big message to China, big signal to China, as well as a morale booster for the forces and a reply in a sense to the opposition and the critics who have been questioning the Prime Minister's dealing with China after the clash that took place in Galwan Valley on the 15th of June, in which 20 Indian soldiers were killed in action. The Indian side, sources have said that on the Chinese side also they lost perhaps double those soldiers. However, since then there has been heightened tension in the area. There have been 3 rounds of talks as well between the generals there, the lieutenant generals there, and there has been an agreement to disengage. However, this visit by the Prime Minister, a big morale booster for the army and the defense forces there. He'll also be going to the hospital, we believe, to visit the soldiers who've been injured, the Galwan Braves, as it were, the soldiers who were injured during those clashes with the Chinese. He'll meet with them. He'll also interact with the top army brass there in Leh. Let's go across to Neeta for more on this. Neeta, so we are getting visuals of the Prime Minister just as he landed there, and he is accompanied he's accompanied on this trip to Ladakh by the Chief of Defence Staff as well as the Army Chief.
Absolutely. Chief of Army Staff Mr. Bipin Rawat and also Army Chief Mr. Naravane have accompanied the Prime Minister to Ladakh. And as you were mentioning, Gargi, Nimu is not a forward post. It's about 35 to 45 kilometers from Ladakh where there's a base. Where the Prime Minister is being briefed by the Air Force officials, Army officials, ITBP officials and many agencies who are operating as of now in Leh and Ladakh. Leh and Ladakh has been seeing a standoff for almost more than 2 months now. Initially, the government stand-up point of view was that nothing is happening there and everything is all quiet there. Whenever the reports of skirmishes used to surface in some part of the media, they used to rebut it. Till the time on 15th of June, 20 of our brave hearts died. That time a standoff took an ugly turn and 20 of our brave hearts died and 76 of our Jawans were injured. Those Jawans are still recuperating in base hospital of Leh Ladakh. It is believed that the Prime Minister would be going and meeting them himself. it's seen as a kind of a, big morale booster kind of an exercise as far as Jawans are concerned, because, these Jawans have been standing in forward locations for so many, such a long period of time, almost 2 months they have been facing hostilities, and whenever they used to hear a voice from Delhi, be it the government, the Bharatiya Janata Party, or the opposition, they were blaming each other as to what was happening on the ground. But the Prime Minister visit is seen as the first big political visit in Leh, Ladakh, in Nimu area, where he's trying to boost up the Jawans. Now, also it's a kind of a message which has been sent at multiple levels. India has been engaging China as far. Yesterday also we heard the Ministry of External Affairs saying that India has been engaging China both militarily and also diplomatically, but to no avail. Last time when such a kind of a standoff had taken place in Dokalam, it lasted for almost 73 days. So India is prepared for such a long overall. Moreover, Gargi, whenever even NDTV has accessed satellite images, it is clearly shown that China has a massive build-up both in terms of infrastructure and also force mobilization. Though India has also matched its preparedness as far as the entire LAC is concerned. But it's a long overhaul. In that backdrop, the Prime Minister himself is visiting. Earlier, as you were mentioning, the Raksha Mantri was supposed to visit this area accompanied by the army chief. Till yesterday afternoon, the program was being chalked out as to where all he would be going. But till yesterday late afternoon, suddenly everything changed. They said his visit is now being rescheduled. Today morning, we came to know as to why his visit was rescheduled when the Prime Minister himself landed there, accompanied by the Chief of Army Staff and Mr. Naravane, who is the Army Chief.
Right, and Neeta, just want to ask here that since Rajnath Singh was going to be visiting, and we'd heard that news, do you see anything in the fact that Rajnath Singh is not there? That do you think perhaps the Defence Minister should have also been there accompanying the Prime Minister?
Yes, it's a kind of a surprise that at such a forward location, the Prime Minister is being accompanied by the COS and the Army Chief, and the Defence Minister himself is missing. People who want to read in between lines will be reading so many different things. However, it's a big political message as far as India is concerned, that the topmost political functionary, the Pradhan Mantri himself, is visiting Leh and Ladakh. It's a message which he's trying to give to China also, to the international community also, and to the domestic politicians also, who have been laying blame on Bharatiya Janata Party and Pradhan Mantri Narendra Modi himself, because last time when he addressed the issue of China, he had categorically said that at no point or at no juncture China had crossed over LAC. There was a huge backlash both politically also, and people were also a little disheartened because 15 of our Jawans had died, and people were questioning as to why those brave hearts had lost their lives. And now in such a backdrop, the PM himself visiting Leh and Ladakh, it's a big moral booster exercise both for Jawans and also a big message politically also and for the international community also. Gargi?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Neeta, for joining us there with those details. So the Prime Minister there, you can see the visuals from earlier when he arrived in Nimu, and he was there on the chopper. As we said, he's accompanied by the Army Chief as well as the Chief of Defence Staff, Bipin Rawat, and interacting with the soldiers there, with the personnel of the Army, Air Force and ITBP. He will be later going to the hospital, is what we've learnt in Leh, where many of those soldiers who were injured in those clashes that took place, and that clash that took place in the Galwan Valley with China, in which we lost 20 of our soldiers. Many of those soldiers remain injured. Around 76 was what was reported earlier. So many of them still in hospital. The Prime Minister will be interacting with them. He'll meet with those soldiers. He'll also be in meeting with the local military leadership there. Lieutenant General Harinder Singh is what we're told is among the senior officers who he will be interacting with in Leh, and it'll be a one-day visit. He arrived this morning. morning, and he'll probably return before dusk because our flights don't take off from Leh once it starts getting slightly dark. So it'll just be a visit of a few hours. But what a strong message this visit is sending in terms of, as you heard from Neeta, to the international community, to China, and also internally to a morale booster for our defense forces, and also to quieten those who were critical, and the opposition who has been very critical of the Prime Minister. Earlier we spoke to Sanket for more about the optics of this entire visit.
Two efforts that are being made at this moment of sending messages. One message for China by the Prime Minister going and not the Defense Minister. Remember, till about yesterday afternoon, we were all told that the Defense Minister will be going on Friday. However, that was postponed. Now we know why, because the Prime Minister had to. Of course, this was kept a secret up until this morning, up until the time that he arrived in Leh. And the second message is for a domestic consumption, for a political consumption for the opposition. We know that the Congress party has been asking some sharp questions, a lot of barbs flying between the BJP and the Congress party. This is a sort of an opportunity that has been created to silence those critics. Whether that will happen, we do not know. But this is definitely a powerful message for the Prime Minister to be there in Leh. We'll soon know his itinerary as well over there. I've been speaking to a few people while we were preparing for this broadcast, and the one point that is mentioned over here is that perhaps the Defense Minister should have gone with the Prime Minister, and it should not have been one against the other. It should have been both. Now, if this sort of a message could have been sent by the Indian establishment, that would have been a very powerful message. However, the Prime Minister being there does send a huge message, not just for Congress, not just for the domestic politics, but also internationally for China. What sort of a response is going to come in? What is the Prime Minister actually going to do? Is he going to go all the way to the frontline areas? That is going to be a huge development and also a big morale boosting step for the forces who are serving in those frontline positions. I guess it'll be interesting to know what the Prime Minister chooses to do there. Very strong messaging that is coming in from the Prime Minister. We are now expecting, and this is source-based information. What we are hearing is that the Prime Minister is going to have a meeting, and he may meet those who were injured in the battle that took place, the bloody battle that took place, where a lot of our Jawans lost their lives and many were injured. So there is a possibility that he will go and meet the injured soldiers while he is in Leh. So this is going to send a huge message. Just those pictures of the Prime Minister meeting the soldiers is going to be a morale booster. You speak to anyone in the defense forces and they will say that this is a huge morale booster. By the way, he's not alone. He has taken the CDS, or the Chief of Defense Staff. General Bipin Rawat is also with him. So these two are expected to visit the hospital where the injured are there, who of course were injured when the Galwan Valley incident happened. This image is going to be all too powerful, both for domestic consumption as well as for China, for Chinese to see at a time when we know that there are so many innumerable reports of the Chinese even refusing to acknowledge those killed in action from their side. At a time like that, when you have the premier of a country, the Prime Minister, visiting these soldiers, it's going to send a very, very powerful international message to China. And this coming within a few days of India banning the Chinese apps, of China responding by saying that this is an aggression and this is going to lead to a violation of WTO guidelines, where India categorically mentioned that, where were those guidelines when China went hammer and tongs banning each and every app all over the world. Half of the apps from Google or other apps do not work in China. So amid this fight, this meeting becomes very, very important. And I continue to maintain that it becomes important not just from the point of view of China, but it also becomes very, very important from the point of view of domestic politics. It will be very interesting to hear what the Congress has to say about this meeting. I think this morning the Prime Minister may have just trumped the Congress.
All right, Sanket, they're taking us through what the optics of this entire visit is, and what it means in terms of sending a strong signal to China, sending a signal to the opposition, also showing the country that the Prime Minister is there in Ladakh, that has seen that clash with China, in which we lost 20 of our soldiers who were killed in action. Also, remember, it's since May that we've been seeing these troubles, this tension along the line of actual control there in Ladakh. So the Prime Minister's surprise visit today to Ladakh. He was in Nimu, where he interacted with many of the forces there, with the personnel of the Army, Air Force and the ITBP. He is accompanied during this visit by Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat and Army Chief General Naravane also with him. He is expected to later go to Leh, to the hospital in Leh, where even now we have soldiers who are being treated after they were injured in that clash that took place in the Galwan Valley on the 15th of June. The clash with the Chinese soldiers, in which 20 of our soldiers were killed in action, and the Prime Minister will be meeting with the injured soldiers who are still recovering in the hospital there. He'll also be interacting with the local military leadership there in Leh. It's expected to be a short visit. He's expected to leave by the afternoon, as flights from Leh are time bound. They can't leave once it starts getting dark. And but a big message really with this visit to Ladakh. Remember, earlier it was on Wednesday that we'd first heard that it was the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh who's expected to visit Ladakh. Then we were told, it was confirmed yesterday morning, that he would be going on Friday. But then later in the day, the news came that the visit was being rescheduled, and that it was, then we learned this morning that the Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, would be visiting Ladakh. And till we got those visuals from the government, from the Prime Minister's office, where then we learned that it was the Prime Minister, in fact, who is making this surprise visit to Ladakh, in a visit that will send a very, very strong message to China, given the tensions that we've seen between India and China ever since, firstly, the tensions that were taking place in Ladakh along the line of actual control, and then the clash in the Galwan Valley, in which we lost 20 of our soldiers. And in fact, since then, we've seen several steps being taken by India in terms of cancelling any sort of agreements with China in Indian railways. Also, the banning of 59 apps, including TikTok, 59 Chinese apps. Also, with the BSNL refusing to have any sort of Chinese involvement in their plans for development. And several industrialists have also spoken out. Yesterday, you had the Jindal Group saying that they would stop and they would end all their imports from China. So a very strong sentiment across the country, and various measures being taken by the government on various fronts, be it banning of apps, being it stopping of these deals that were, that had been undertaken with various Chinese entities, and also several industrialists also speaking out about the dealings with China in Maharashtra as well. 3 deals were cancelled, 3 MOUs that were signed with Chinese companies were cancelled by the Maharashtra government. So steps on several fronts, and now you have the Prime Minister visiting Ladakh in this surprise visit on Sunday. In fact, during his Mann Ki Baat, he did speak out strongly about China. He said those who cast an evil eye on Indian soil in Ladakh got a befitting reply, that India honors the spirit of friendship, but she's capable of giving an appropriate response to any adversary without shying away. And the Prime Minister now visiting Ladakh today. Earlier we spoke to Lieutenant General Dua for more on what he feels is the signal that is being sent by the Prime Minister's visit today.
It's always very uplifting for the morale of the front line, whether it is soldiers or anyone, when the leaders move to the front line. In a situation that we've been seeing that has been developing over the last 2 months or more, it is not only a morale booster for the armed forces, which obviously it is. I think it's also a big morale booster for the country, and a very strong statement being made. Also, the fact that he interacts with troops on ground, with soldiers in the hospital, he gets a first-hand account without any time lags. He gets an account directly from the front line of small and big issues that have been concerning them. So it's very important that he gets that kind of a first-hand account without layers of analysis and time lags in between. I think all in all, a very good step will go very well for the armed forces, and a strong step, a strong statement being made there by the Prime Minister.
General Dua, it's Gargi here, but also this visit by the Prime Minister, as Vishnu was telling us, talks have been going on. There have been several rounds of talks, but we have been told by the defense, by the government, that it's in for the long haul, that this is not something that's going to be resolved immediately. All these talks that have been taking place, but still along the LOC, it remains very, very heated on both sides. And we've seen a big build-up, as Vishnu was saying, in China. We don't want to say too much about the situation on the Indian side, but a lot of troops over there, and the Prime Minister now making this visit. It comes and a surprise visit at that, because remember, we were expecting Defence Minister to visit, and then we were told that visit was rescheduled. So again, a big message, given that it is the long haul for the forces there.
My apologies, Gagi, I got your name wrong. But it is a long haul for a different reason. It is a long haul because we have already had 3 rounds of those Lieutenant General level talks in which some protocols of disengagement have been decided. It's a long haul because it's a verifiable process. Each step that is taken by one side will be verified by photographs, maybe by drones. Thereafter, it will be verified by a patrol physically going and checking out that a certain structure or a certain movement has taken place backwards. Then, which takes about 72 hours. Then they come back and they will dismantle their part of whatever protocol has been agreed to. So it's a step-by-step verifiable process. Therefore, it takes a long time. In fact, it was one such verification patrol that turned ugly on the 15th. So hereafter, assuming that we don't have any such issues in between, yet it is going to take months because, like I said, it is going to be a step-by-step process. So we will have patience at that and hope that nothing turns ugly. As far as the build-up is concerned, well, armies always hope for the best but plan for the worst. So armies will have to be ready. I'm glad that our deployments and positions are not being brought out in the media. It's a very mature thing to do. So while we are disengaging, we have to keep ourselves ready for all options. But last sentence, yes, it will be a long process. We will have to be very patient on this, and I would urge everyone to keep their patience and not try to say, oh, we must kick them out and we must do this. Well, we must keep our options ready, but we must also give a chance to be able to disengage as per the talks that are taking place and that continue to take place.
Right. And General Dua, finally, this opposition has been very critical of the Prime Minister for not speaking out against China strongly enough. But with this visit, a very, very strong signal to China.
I agree. The Prime Minister had once spoken about this, where he gave out certain clarifications on this issue. There was a lot of talk when he spoke about the Unlock 2.0 a couple of days ago when it was expected that why did he not address China? So I will not comment on this. But I think this silences everyone. He has himself visited. He has met the frontline soldiers. He is going to meet the patients in the hospital. I think this should actually silence everybody, and a very strong statement goes out to the other side. And the last sentence I would like to say, I think this is time that the whole country comes together. I mean, we'll not talk about political lines or any other detractors. Everyone needs to come together. Some other very good steps have been taken. These 59 apps that have been banned, several other steps that have been announced in the road construction or in the telecommunications. I think this is the kind of integrated approach that is required. And I think this Prime Minister's visit is now sending out a strong statement that we are prepared to do whatever it takes, but we will not have the sovereignty or territorial integrity of our borders being compromised.
So that is the big story we're tracking right now. The Prime Minister's surprise visit there to Ladakh, where he's interacted with the defense personnel. He'll be visiting the injured soldiers in the hospital in Leh. And all in all, this visit, a big morale boost for the army there. Remember, the army has been on high alert in this region ever since the tensions with China, which have been brewing since May, and then the clash that took place on the 15th of June, in which 20 of our soldiers were killed in action. The Prime Minister there, you can see, being briefed by a general, and as we said, he will be visiting the hospital. So a strong signal to China, as well as a morale booster for the army. But with that, time for us to slip into a short break. We'll get you more on the other side.